Hello and welcome to Ulla and Arts. My name is Claire and in this video I'm going to be going through my Vintage Ladies Folio folder with you and show you how I add the finishing touches. So here is my first example of the Vintage Ladies Folio folder that you can make from my kit. And now we're going to proceed to make it again, and I'm just going to show you nips and tricks all the way along to help you give it that extra special wow factor. At this point of the tutorial, it has been heavily edited just to help speed up the process here so we can get on to the other points of dressing up the folio. If you would like a more in-depth version of the actual folio, the basic construction, then please see my other video in the description. I will link it there for you. And now we are just going to add the stiffener pages to the central parts of the folio folder just to give it that extra little bit of sturdiness. Once these pages are fitted, we can move on to adding our design pages to our project, and I'm just going to speed this part up. It's pretty self-explanatory. It is my hope that this tutorial gives you a good insight into a bit more about my style and how I work and coordinate my projects, how I make decisions. You will see I faff an awful lot and change my mind, but I think that's all part of the creative process, isn't it? Or at least that's what I tell myself. I'm sure we're all the same, but you can tell me if you're any different. I'd love to hear stories. As we come to the end of adding our backing papers here, we are going to move over to adding some signatures. I thought it would add a nice extra special touch and a little bit of writing room here. So I'm just selecting some papers from my pile of randoms. And I think at this point it's pretty self-explanatory, but as and when I will snip in and tell you what I'm doing. We're going for a 3-hole pamphlet stitch with this one. I'm just literally going to eyeball it. So we'll just trim them down and get them to the right size, and then I will be back. With the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, I always make sure I mark the holes first with an awl. As you can see, I just showed you there. I have 2 different types, but I need quite a fine needle on this one, so I'm going to go with my thinner one. And I'm just selecting a nice colour that's going to match this folio from my embroidery thread box. So I'm just going to pull it apart, 1 to 2 strands. To be honest, 1's probably enough. This isn't supposed to be heavy, so it doesn't need structural integrity. It's more just to keep it where it needs to be. So we're going to go in through the middle. Takes a little bit of wiggling just to find the holes. We're going to go up to the top and pull it through from the back, straight down to the bottom. and then back in through the middle. Now, when you push the needle back through the middle, you want one piece of the thread either side of the piece coming down, and then just tie them together in a knot. And then you'll see again, I'm just going to do it a second time for the other fold. So again, I'm just eyeballing the holes and in through the middle, up through the top. Again, just a little bit fiddly, but you just need to tell them papers what they need to do. So you back up through the middle again, one strand either side of the long piece coming down through the middle, pull it nice and tight, check the backs to make sure it's in, and then tie it in a double knot. And that's it, you have your pages, there they are. It literally takes a couple of minutes. Moving over to our pockets, I'm just going to cut a couple of them out now so I can have a play, start thinking about how it's going to look, what pockets I want where, things like that. As you can see, I'm just working through each of the pockets here, folding all the tabs in. I use different methods depending on how long the lines are, how straight I want them to be. So here I score the tall one, just purely because if you fold it by hand or with a ruler, sometimes where it's so long, it can just be a bit skewed. So I always just pop those belly bands onto the guillotine and just use it as a glorified scoring board, basically. Same thing with the corner pockets here. They're just that little bit longer, so really eyeballing it sometimes isn't the best idea. That ruler does just help keep it straight. That's our pockets finished. Now I'd like to add a little extra something to this, so we're going to go over and have a look at how we can decorate our pocket here to the left. I'm thinking a cluster, so let's grab a few papers. I've got my die cut sheet here and some words and things, and hopefully as we go along it will inspire me as to how we're going to do this. I'm just having a look here to see which one I think would look best as a focal point onto this pocket. I think it's going to be the Vintage Lady, so we'll just snip that one out and give it a quick fussy cut. A quick tip for fussy cutting: move the paper, not the scissors. So keep the scissors pretty much where they are at all times. Obviously you can move them a little bit. I'm not saying they have to stay where they are, but move the paper instead. So it will just be smoother as you move it through the blades, and then you can have a much neater finish. With that done, I need to think about layering it up, so I'm going to try and match some colours that appear throughout the folio so far. So I've got another spare sheet of the pages that I use for the signature, so I'm just going to rip that down to give it a little bit of dimension and texture. It's all about different interest points when it comes to a cluster, in my opinion. So really contrasting and clashing papers. So you just want a good balance of both. Different textures, so different types of paper, different thicknesses. I throw baking paper in there quite a lot, tea stain papers, printed papers. As you can see, I'm throwing in a doily now, and it all just adds different interest parts. And all about clustering is layering. So even if it doesn't look quite right at the beginning, you'll find that if you add more and more layers, eventually it will just come together. So I'm going to have two focal points to this cluster. I'm going to have the lady, but I'm also going to have this saying here. Now I've built up a few layers, I'm just going to distress it and ink everything just to see how it all comes together. It might be that I'll have to add something else, but I think I've got a good amount there to work with initially. For me, it's all about the symmetry with placement. So it needs to be even, but not. Yeah, I think you'll understand what I mean. As I add these layers, you can see it kind of all just falls into place. As you wiggle it around a little bit, you can see how best it looks. So I'm just going to put all of these together now. I'm just going to literally pop a staple right through. The reason I do this is because I don't want to solidly glue everything down onto each other. I want a little bit of movement, because when it moves around a little bit, it just gives that extra bit of 3D. So I'll just add some little glue dots here and there just to secure it to the pocket, but really I want everything else a bit more loose, and then it gives that dimension that I'm looking for. I love a project to just sort of pop out at you when you look at it. Lots of points of interest. I love the way these ones go together. I may need something else to add to it at some point, but we'll see as we go further along. Lovely. I'm happy with that. I've just noticed I've made a bit of a boob. Can you see here? I've got lines. So from the ink of my pockets, there are lines that have unfortunately transferred over onto my paper, but never mind. All is not lost, we can recover. So these stencils are from my stash. I don't currently sell these or anything. I may do in the future, but these are just something that I've knocked together on the Cricut and cut out myself. I love the impression that stenciling gives to paper. It's just another something to look at. Just gives it a lovely little finished effect. So I'm just going to stamp all the way across this and just give it, well, you can see for yourself. It's time to get our ephemera ready now, so I'm just going to cut everything out, get it all linked up. I don't distress the edges of the ephemera. The reason I don't do that is because by distressing it creates bulk. We already are going to have so much bulk within our folio with all of these lovely pieces to add. So if I distress it as well, it might just be a bit much. So we're just inking for the ephemera. With all of the inking completed, we can now move over to our front and back covers. This element always takes me a while. Again, I faff and I play and I'm indecisive, so I'm just going to play some lovely music again, just whilst it all comes together, and hopefully most of it will be pretty self-explanatory. I will chime in when needed, just to give any tips along the way that pop up, but apart from that, I hope you enjoy watching. I need to find something interesting to add now, so I've just got my tub of cutouts and stencils and doilies and things, just to have a play and see what it looks like. I'm pretty sure we're going to roll with these ones, so I'm just going to have a go with the inks now and some paint possibly as well, just to take the white away from these accents. We want them to mould in with the project and not stand out like a sore thumb, like they don't belong there. At this point, I think I'm getting a clear idea of the type of finish I'm after. The doily just isn't cutting it for me, so I'm just going over now. I've flipped it and I'm adding gold paint instead to give it that lovely shimmery finish. So once that's finished, there's no white on show. I'm just going to grab my other paint that I had out. So I'm just going to add some finishing touches to the backing papers. So we'll just scrunch this up a little bit and I'm going to add some paint to the edges. It really adds an extra edge to those papers. I don't know if you can see on the camera now. I love how it looks. I almost add little splodges on the edges. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. And now my flower should be ready, so we're just going to peel this off. I don't know if it's going to be any good though. There's lots of residue. What I should have done is pulled it straight off first thing. So I think we're going to probably have to remake that. So let me just find a replacement. And actually, I think the smaller one works better for this project. So I'm just going to paint it up now, and I'm going to peel it straight off so that there's no pieces left behind or extra residue on the sides of the flower. This is the part that I love. It's the bit where everything should start coming together and you can really finalise decisions and get all of the edges done, everything inked. You also quite quickly can recognise if something's missing. It's quite clear to see that we've got a bit of a gap here at the top. I'm not sure on this bow. It needs to have that corner angle and cover it to make it look balanced. I think that's the right word, balanced. So I've just pulled out my lace box, my little snippets that I've got, and I'm going to tie a few of these together just to make a pretty little bow. These little bows are so simple. I just get a piece of thread with a needle and I just go straight through the middle, just in, out, and in and out, as you can see. And then pull it all together and wrap around in the middle just to tighten it up. Now I've got all of my pieces together, I think I'm just going to get the back cover on first, have a little think about how I want to finish it off and then come back to it. We are back to our front cover now, so I'm just going to start to add the layers piece by piece and just basically see as I go, add things as I feel necessary. I just want to show you quickly, I don't go all the way right up to the corners with my edges on the papers. It all adds to that 3D look. In short, and as a rule of thumb, do not take your glue all the way to the edges. Whenever I get to a point like this where I can't quite decide which pieces are going to go where, I add borders. What the borders do is make these different parts stand out. You've just got to get the balance right with colours, but the idea is to have like a poppy colour, something that's going to really stand out from the rest of the papers. Really now what we're doing is we're just adding all of the final edging and everything else. There's hundreds of edges probably in the end by the time you look at the whole project. I'm just going to speed this part up. There's quite a lot finishing touches wise to go through, so I'm just going to switch back the music and let you watch. I did actually record a tutorial on making this pretty little bow, but unfortunately it wasn't very clear. It was like the poorest choice of colour I could have possibly made. So if you would like a more in-depth detailed video of the origami bow, either you can look it up straight on YouTube, or if you'd like me to do it, then I'm more than happy to do so. Just pop it in the comments. And to finish off, we're just going to add our ephemera into the pockets now. There's no rhyme or rule with it, just go with however you feel. The only thing I don't like to do is have the same backing paper with the same letter writing paper, which you'll see in a second. I just swap them over, just so they're different. I don't like anything to be matchy-matchy. You can, but it's just not what I like to do. And there she is, all done. Absolutely loaded with writing space and journaling spots. I have to say I'm very, very happy with the outcome. I'm sure you can see the difference, just what happens, same kit, just different methods, and just going that extra mile. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure. Bye.